Hey everyone, how's your reading going? Now this is a book. I have not finished this book and I will not. And there are, well, it's my reason. I don't know if it's a good reason and I really don't care. It's not my problem. I think I bought this last year at the Book Fair Australia. And so The Story Thief by Kyra Geddes. Now the idea is that Lillian was born in 1892, and it's the same year Henry Lawson wrote The Drover's Wife, I can get words right, and cemented his place in Australia's literary canon. When Lillian reads the short story as a teenager, she is convinced it is based upon her own family and becomes determined to prove it. But as the years pass, the truth becomes more problematic and Lillian must decide what is more important, holding on to the past or embracing the future. The Story Thief is about mothers and daughters, love, loss, and the power of words. Ultimately, it is about how each of us must find our own way to live. So, the beginning of this book is really, really good. It's nerve-wracking because it starts in rural New South Wales in 1900. So, in that year, the protagonist, the person that we're seeing through her eyes, who was writing everything down, writing down some of it, she was born in 1892 and she was 8 when the bushfire came through and destroyed her property, her parents' property, destroyed her mother, her siblings, and her uncle. So, and that's very topical at this moment because we have bushfires in, well, at the time I'm saying this, I don't know when I'm going to upload this video, but currently we have bushfires in the west of Melbourne, the west of Victoria, and near the Grampians. So it's a really hard place. It means a lot to a lot of us. I've been to the Grampians many, many times. It is beautiful up there. If you get a chance to go. Spend some time there. I had my steak pinched from me by a kookaburra one night, many, many years ago. That was interesting. I did not want to fight that kookaburra for my steak, because their beaks are very big. So anyway, and also today, at the time of making this video, there's also a bushfire in the west of Tasmania. And the reason I say that one, because Tasmania is a long way from Melbourne. We have smoke in Melbourne. I have actually had to take Ventolin because of the smoke. I don't have to take Ventolin very often anymore because I'm on preventers. But today the smoke got to me, and I figured a little bit of Ventolin is a good thing. And I was able to breathe quite well after that. But we have the smoke drifting across Melbourne, and it comes from Tasmania. It doesn't come from the Grampians fire or any of those fires out in the west of Melbourne. It comes from Tasmania. That's a much further distance. It's much further away than the ones in the west of Melbourne. Not in the west of Melbourne, on the west beyond Melbourne. Because it's summer here. It's bushfire weather. And there's a lot of bushfires at the moment. And so this begins with a bushfire. And destroys. And poor Lillian is left by herself. She's got an aunt who blames her for the loss of her husband. And then Lillian is taken off to school by a beneficiary, someone who likes her dad and has worked with her dad a lot. And that is good for her because her dad is devastated by all the loss. He was out droving so he couldn't be there to help with the fire. Although I feel that he wouldn't have been much help. He would have needed a lot more people than were available in that area at that time in 1900. This is beautifully written. So I guess you're wondering why I've stopped reading it and why I won't finish it. Well, I'll get to it. So, things that I liked about this book were the writing. Why have I put skin colour here on page 17, skin colour? Yes, because Mr. O'Loughlin, the man who was sending Lillian off to school, the man who had employed Lillian's father, he was saying, one mustn't judge a book by its binding, lass. Just because a man has yellow skin, or even black skin, and ours is white, that doesn't make him any less worthy in God's eyes. Lord knows I faced enough discrimination as a Catholic in my younger years. I'm not about to do the same thing to anyone else. I love that paragraph. I mean, seriously, it's like, don't be racist. As a Catholic. O'Loughlin, I wonder if that's Irish, in which case that's the Troubles in Ireland, probably. Anyway, which some of that actually came here, because some of the Irish came here, and we already had English and religion and politics. But I really loved that paragraph. It is beautiful. And don't be racist, essentially. Now, the next one I've made mention of is on page 42. It's the mystery of a Hansom Cab. Well, not handsome as in Handsom, but handsome as in Hansom. Hansom. So 42 it was, and I like the fact that it's on 42. So I thought, yes, having previously read the popular Australian detective novel The Mystery of a Hansom Cab, and more than a few of Conan Doyle's stories, I was beginning to think of myself as something of its Sherlock Holmes. So this is really good. I like The Mystery of a Hansom Cab because it dates the book Mystery of a Hansom Cab. I've read that. It's really good. It's set in Melbourne, and I think Lucy Sussex, the author Lucy Sussex, I think I've got the right person, actually has done tours of Melbourne using locations of The Mystery of a Hansom Cab where things were spoken about in the book. Fantastic. Smallpox. I want to actually find out what I've said about smallpox. Page 66. Smallpox. Oh. Right. Smallpox vaccinations. So it wasn't 1900, it was a little later because by then she's a little bit older. But a friend, several girls are still languishing in bed, suffering the after effects of the smallpox vaccination Miss MacDonald had procured for us following the recent outbreak. So, sometime in the early 1900s, you've got smallpox in Sydney. And they're having smallpox vaccinations, and sometimes people are not reacting very well, which I can understand. I had very little reaction to the COVID vaccines. Very little. I had, like, the first one I had a bruise for, like, 3 weeks, and a sore arm for 4 weeks, or can't remember. It was something along those lines. One went a week earlier than the other. And I consider myself quite lucky because other people went to bed. Not just went to bed, but I know one person who ended up in hospital that night of her first vaccination, first COVID vaccination. She reacted so badly. And I know someone else who reacted so badly he can't have any more. So, And he used to be quite healthy beforehand, I believe. He always looked healthy. He still looks healthy. People tell me I look healthy. Anyway, you can't judge a book by its cover. Original owners. I'm not going back. Okay, we have a reference to Anzac Day. So it's post-Gallipoli, 25th of April. I can't remember if it was actually referred to as Anzac Day in those days or if that came later. And the reason for Anzac is because it's the initials ANZAC, Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. And I'm sure that for a long time they used the full uppercase for the letters Anzac. And now we only use initial caps for the first letter. Anyway, so next bit. So from a historical point of view, this book is really good. I mean, if I'd finished it and wrote something about it on my blog, then I would have checked this referendum on page 94. Referendum. There's a referendum here. Right. Okay. So the referendum was to alter the Defence Act so men could be conscripted, not just to fight on Australian soil as the Act already allowed, but overseas too. Excellent. I did fact check something else, and that was later on when we're talking about vaccines. That was for the Spanish flu, and I did actually go and fact check that a couple of days ago. And yes, Commonwealth Serum Laboratories, or CSL, actually produced a vaccine for the Spanish flu in whichever year it was. Oh, excuse me. Anyway. Oh, I've now got hiccups. Just what you need on a vlog, I'm sorry. Okay. One thing I loved about this, and I've actually got two instances here, are Australian slang. So we've got bonza. She's bonza. She'll be right. She's bonza. Bonza means good. And she's apples, which also means good. I love it. But I stopped sometime after page 157, so out of how many pages there are in this book. Oh, there's acknowledgements at the back. And there's some historical stuff, the people and places of the story thief, which includes Henry Lawson's mother, because apparently she was pretty amazing in of her own right. Louisa Lawson. She had her own publishing company and everything. Okay, 393 pages, and I made it to at least 157, and the reason I say that is because there is a note here about potato. Oh yes, I know. She's in a car. Doesn't go in a car very often because they're still really new in whatever this is, 1920, 1925 or something. That sounds too wrong. It can't be 1925, a little bit earlier. And anyway, she's on a date, and Roy is outside the car, and it is raining buckets, and he's holding a potato. Why? Because he's wiping it over the windscreens. It stops the glass from fogging up. I remember way back in a long time ago, when I was actually shorter than I am now, and a lot skinnier. I was always skinnier in those days. We were driving, we had the caravan behind us, and the windscreen wipers stopped, and the rain was pelting down. It was so heavy. And what Dad did is he stopped the car, and he went to the caravan, he pulled out a potato, cut it in half, and then went and smeared it over the windscreen. what that did is it gave him the ability to see at least somewhat enough to be able to drive safely. I don't know about this fogging up stuff, but so back at the cars back then, they would not have had windscreen wipers. My mother was sitting in the front seat, and she was having kittens after that while he drove, because he only did his side of the windscreen, so she couldn't see a thing. And Dad was quite happy because he'd taken this really simple and easy route to fixing the windscreen, so he could actually see enough to drive. And it was easier to see after he'd gone and wiped the potato over it. I remember seeing that than before. It was a lot of rain. It was very, very heavy. So that's why I marked page 157, because I wanted to have that anecdote, because it was very odd seeing my father wiping a cut potato over the windscreen. But just remember that, because it actually does work. And so sometime after page 157, I don't remember where this bookmark was, there's some lovey-dovey stuff. And I closed it, I put it down, and I have not been interested in opening it again. There are very few things that make me enjoy the lovey-dovey stuff, or very few things that make me be able to get past the lovey-dovey stuff. And especially as Lillian was going to be her own person. She had gone to school, gone to college or uni or whatever they called them in those days, and she had learned how to become a teacher, or learned enough in order to become a teacher. And it's not teacher, not the... And so she was teaching. I'm sure that's the word. And so anyway, so she was teaching. And she was making her way in the world and looking after herself and doing a really good job of it. And then this man comes on the scene. And she tries to ignore the fact that there's some growing... sorry. I really don't like the lovey-dovey stuff. And he asked her for a kiss, and that's when I closed it, and I don't remember what page that was on, and I don't care. I will pass this book on to someone else. I know I bought it at the Book Fair Australia for last year, because it says Better Read Than Dead. That's the bookshop that was one of the sponsors of the Book Fair Australia, and they had a really good table where you could buy books, and I bought this. And well, I did ask. I do tell people when I'm buying books, can't stand the romantic stuff. It wrecks a book for me, and what do I get? Romance. So I'm sorry to all those people who like romance. I don't care. It's not for me. But it's still a really good book. At least what I read of it anyway. So I read almost half. And I don't care about the rest. Not anymore. I don't care about whether she finds out anything more about Henry Lawson, whether this poem he wrote is really about her family. I just don't care anymore. So, I'm sorry to Kyra Geddes. You write a beautiful book, but you put romance in. I'm not going to read it anymore. Someone else will enjoy it. I might... No, I can't lend it to Mum. She prefers detective stories. Ah, well. I'll leave it with her anyway, see what she thinks. So, if you don't mind romance, and if you like a lot of history, then this is quite well written. The Story Thief by Kyra Geddes. I was going to ask you a question about it if you read it and tell me, but there's actually nothing I want to know. So, all I wish to say is, enjoy it. And I'll see you on the flip side. Subscribe down below or don't, as you choose. Bye.